Looks can be deceiving. Never judge a book by its cover, and things aren't always what they seem. Just because something looks simple or childish or whimsical doesn't always make it so. But we're not perfect, and much like books, it's just as easy to judge a game by its cover art. Be taken in by the bright colours, or the more family-friendly prequels, or the fact that the game is literally based on a film for actual children, only to be quickly sucker-punched by a difficulty spike worthy of Jack's perfectly coiffed Super Saiyan hair. Here's 5 games that had no right to be this damn hard. First up then, we have the sequel to the beloved classic PlayStation adventure Jak and Daxter. Fans of the first game may have approached Jak 2 expecting more of the same colourful cartoon capers as the original, but this was Naughty Dog's emo phase, so we got Grand Theft Crash Bandicoot instead. Don't get us wrong, that's meant as a huge compliment, but when you go from this to this,
I'm gonna kill Praxis!
There's gonna be some whiplash involved. And quite contrary to the occasionally challenging platforming and well-hidden collectibles of the first game, Jak 2 literally takes a scattergun shell to it all and throws you straight into the deep end of challenging gunplay combat, tough boss fights, and collectibles that you'll almost certainly never find without a guide. For example, one of the very first levels in Jak 2 sees you travel to an ammo dump with the intention of blowing it up. This is like the third mission in the game, so you'd expect it to be fairly simple, right? Well, no, because Naughty Dog, it turns out, are in the middle of developing some kind of clairvoyant AI that knows exactly where you're going to be at any time and placed it inside of this specific tank. If the all-seeing death machine doesn't get you, the dodgy camera angles will. And then there's the Get Seal piece at the Water Slums mission. Potentially the biggest difficulty spike I've ever experienced. It took me hours as a kid to get through this mission, endlessly slaughtering wave after wave of Crimson Guard before ultimately dying meters from the finish line. Yes, you can cheese it by dark bombing the sentry or carefully riding the hoverboard along the pathway, but I'm willing to bet this mission is responsible for miles of broken controllers. Add to that a series of annoying escort missions, vehicles that aren't designed for the levels they're driven in, and those pointless mech suits. And Jak 2 was way harder than anyone who played the first game ever expected. Still one of my favourite games and series of all time though. We're all just big dark eco-emos at heart. The first of 2 classic Disney games on this list, The Lion King's difficulty is very well documented by now. Brutal enemies, near impossible platforming that demanded perfect timing and judgment to pull off, health and power-ups hidden in places you'd never think to look, as an adult, let alone a kid just picking up their first gamepad, and it was all by design. The Lion King was developed at a time when game rental was a big worry for the companies who made them. They didn't want you to be able to complete the game in one sitting, otherwise you'd only have to rent it once and what would be the point in buying it? So they were made deliberately difficult or convoluted to keep players coming back to finish them. And while that is a reason, it's not an excuse. And it's especially not an excuse for making the hitbox on the Hippo Tails ever so slightly off-center, making what looks like an inch-perfect jump and insta-death. And making a game specifically designed for children, based on one of the biggest kids' films ever created, this bloody hard is a crime we can't forgive. It's a shame because past the truly unhinged difficulty spikes once you get beyond the first level, it's actually an incredible game with some of the tightest platforming you'll ever see. And that's from a game that dropped in 1994. That said, The Lion King has no right giving a 28-year-old man trouble. Just saying. It's not just all the games that do their best to trick players into a false sense of security though. Now, obviously, Crash Bandicoot has been baiting gamers into falling into pits filled with collectathon platforming difficulty spikes since the late 90s. But Crash 4, It's About Time, took us to a whole new level of platformer pain. Don't let the bright colour palette and playful physics-defying gameplay fool you. This marsupial will you up and smile while he does it. It's not that the game itself is hard per se, you can actually finish the story inside of a single session if you're just ploughing through levels without worrying about collecting everything. But if you've played any Crash game before, chances are you're naturally compelled to seek out every box, gem, and collectible the game puts in your path. The problem is that if you want to collect everything in Crash 4, and unlock that obligatory secret 106% ending, you're staring down the barrel of around 70 hours of Bandicoot-based hell. Not only are there now 6 gems in every level to unlock, and coloured gems that require you to pull off weird and wonderful gimmicks to be unlocked, There's also an insanely perfect relic in every level as well, which requires you to break all boxes without dying once. Hard, but not impossible, right? Then you're going to want to grab all the platinum relics for every level, and once your thumbs are in casts and you've developed carpal tunnel, you'll then have to play through every level again with a new gimmick in place, like these godforsaken underwater levels, get all the gems from those levels, including the secret gems, which are in a different place to the original level, and then you need to play through the alternate timeline levels, which have you play as another character to a certain point in the level you've already played through, pick up from a midpoint in the level with Crash again and finish that with 100% accuracy and no deaths to get all the gems and relics in those levels, and then you'll have to finish all the flashback tapes, and then, and only then, will you have finished the game and unlock the final secret ending. It took me 5 hours to 100% Crash 1, but Crash 4 broke me. Another classic of the Disney era from hell that spawned previous entry The Lion King, Aladdin's up next, and if anything, this one's even worse. The Aladdin video game for the Sega Genesis was just as cruel and unforgiving as The Lion King, but was honestly just a bit more sadistic with it. Again, don't get us wrong, it's a verified classic, and still decades later, is fondly remembered as one of the best and most brutally punishing games of the time. The insta-kill lava while you escape from the Cave of Wonders on the back of carpet will forever haunt my nightmares, and the Jafar snake fight, or more specifically exactly how to beat it, is ingrained into my brain far more than any Dark Souls or Elden Ring boss moveset ever will be. Sure, nowadays speedrunners can smash this game to pieces in little under 20 minutes, but you've got to believe me, this was hard for us back in the day. It's another easy target, but come on Disney. You market your movies to kids and then put them through meat grinder games like this? You had no right making Aladdin so hard.
Hi folks! You wanna know what's going on? Let me tell you the story of Rayman!
Our final spot on this list goes to another certified banger from the 90s era, Rayman. He may be more famous for his adventures with Rabbids and Glowbox nowadays, but this is where it all started for the hero of the thingamajigs. This game gave me, my dad and my brother a bloody nose so many times that we had a post-it note stuck to the front of the box with the password to unlock all levels and all Electoon cages so that we could just play the final level, let alone actually beat it. Forget the colourful, wondrous, and yeah, occasional acid trip style level and character design, this whimsical romp across Rayman's world to free the Electoons from Mr. Dark will destroy you once you make it out of the early levels. It's a relic of its time to a certain extent, but from the get-go you have limited restarts when you run out of lives, and once you reach 0 on your restarts, you lose all your progress. No backsies, no takebacks, you're done. Which, as you can imagine, is quite stressful for a 6-year-old just getting to grips with platformers. And even if by some miracle you do make it to the very end of the game, no mean feat in of itself, you can't even access the final level and defeat Mr. Dark unless you free all the Electoons from their cages across every level in the game, which means replaying every level, risking more lives, and having to pull off some truly outrageous feats of platforming brilliance to reach every cage. Some of them are in some frankly unfair places as well, requiring frame-perfect jumps, sometimes to platforms off screen that you'd never even think would be there. And all this for a game that was rated E for everyone. Thanks Ubisoft, you scarred me for life. So there you have it, 5 games that honestly had no right to be as hard as they were. Let us know which games sucker punched you with their difficulty down in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if you've been brutally punished by one of these games before, and subscribe if you want to see more gaming content like this, and I'm gonna go play something a little bit easier.